This is a lesson in left-hand shifts for classical guitar, and this comes from my new technique book, but you can watch the video lesson for free and just kind of use the examples. But if you're interested in the book, there's a link for that under the video. So left-hand shifts are a really important aspect of classical guitar playing, because once we get our general hand position down, moving it around the neck can sometimes cause disruption to that hand position. So before we do the exercises, which there's only 3 exercises that we'll do, I'll just give a small mention of what I mean by keep retaining the good hand position. So when we have a good hand position, like a 4-fingered hand position, the fingers are all curved, playing on our fingertips, our knuckles are kind of aligned with the strings, our thumb is behind our second finger, all those good things are happening. When we shift, we just want to move that around. So the arm just actually moves that hand position around. And one common mistake for students is that their thumb will lag behind. They won't actually retain this point of reference, which is also just like a good normal hand position, right? Thumb behind the second finger, approximately. There's leeway, right, on either way, but approximately behind the second finger. And when you shift, some students will lag their thumb behind. So watch yourself that you don't do that. Make sure you just kind of release the pressure in the hand, and then you just move the whole hand upwards, and the thumb just moves along with the hand. So the thumb is always in the same place. So just be very, very careful that the thumb is actually staying with your hand. The other thing we're really going to talk about is guide fingers. And all I mean by guide fingers are when you keep your finger on the string. So if you're shifting up, I can keep my first finger on this string to keep my hand more aligned and more secure, right? If I take my finger off the string and I shift up, I have to find my place again, and that can cause problems. But if it's possible to keep a finger down, especially on the nylon strings, then when you're moving up, you have all this security. So it could be with the first finger, it could be with the 4th finger. It's such an advantage, so we're always looking for guide fingers when we're shifting. Now on the bass strings, that can cause a lot of squeak, and we're going to talk about that in a few of the exercises. So the first exercise is just a basic guide finger exercise. And of course all these shift exercises are going to prepare us for scales. So the next video is actually going to be on 2 and 3 octave scales, and so we're going to be using these types of shifts in our scales. So guide fingers. First, we're going to start with the first finger guide finger. So we'll start on the 3rd string. We're going to go 1, 2, keep your first finger down, slide up to the 5th position, and play 1, 2 again. Again, keep your first finger down. So just make sure you relax the finger, but keep it on the string. So you want to relax the pressure, but keep it on the string and use the string as a guide. And the other thing, make sure your thumb is staying in the correct position with your fingers. So the exercise is this. Make sure that your hand isn't getting misaligned. Anything like that. You want to keep those knuckles parallel with the strings, right? So the first finger stays down. Second finger guide finger, we're just going to play 2, 3. Go to the 5th position again. 2, 3, 2, 3. And the second finger stays down as a guide finger. The knuckles aligned with the string still. Make sure the thumb's behind that second finger. Next one is 3rd finger and 4th. So it's the 3rd finger that stays down as the guide finger. It doesn't really matter, like if you do it upside down, if you go like 4, 3, the third finger is still the guide finger. So the third finger would stay down. Now, of course, you can do this on other strings. On the bass strings, it might squeak. You know, and back and forth. If you relax your grip as much as possible, it'll reduce the amount of squeak, but it won't get rid of it. To get rid of the squeak, you have to take your finger actually off the string, but keep it very close and very, very organized. Keeping your knuckles aligned, your thumb aligned, and when you take your finger off, take it off only a few millimeters. That way you don't lose track of the string. If your finger's really close to the string, you won't accidentally put it down on the wrong string or something like that. So when you're doing this on the bass strings, in order to get rid of the squeak, you'll have to take your finger off, or at least release the pressure as much as possible to reduce the squeak. Next exercise is octave jumps. These are much more difficult. There's no guide fingers here. So we're going to go C to D flat, and then C to D flat on the third string, C to D flat on the fifth string, and then back to the third string, second string. And we'll do this right in time. Just remember, keep your knuckles aligned, so don't end up like that. Keep your thumb behind your second finger, or aligned, right? And just try to make those shifts as clean as possible. If you're more on the beginner side, just take it really slow. Look at where you're going. Move your hand there. When you do these shifts, too, don't readjust. Like, you do it, and you shift right to the point where you want to shift to. You don't go like this. You know, readjust. You have to see exactly where your finger is going and then go right there. It's like willing your hand right into place. No exceptions. It's just there, there. All you have to do when you arrive is put your finger down. That's it. And of course we can do it with C sharp and D. And we can do it with D and E flat. Oops. So keeping it very, very organized. And your position marks, like first position, fifth position, third position, keep that very, very clear in your head. Now, the final exercise is larger shifts and reducing bass string squeak. So I would recommend when you first try this, you keep your fingers down on the string and just let it squeak. Just let it squeak, but get your muscle memory organized. But then you got to practice it with no bass string squeak, or as little as possible. It might squeak like a little bit, but you're generally going to get rid of it. And we're going to have to do that by taking our fingers actually off the string, right? So we're doing a shift from first position up to third position. And then after we play the fourth finger, we shift back to first position. Then the next one is larger. We go to the fourth position, then back to first position, then fifth position, first, sixth, first, seventh, first, eighth, first, ninth, first. So you'll have to take your fingers off, but remember, keep it very close. Keep everything aligned. So the shift gets pretty large, but because it's up a single string, it's not too bad. But remember, it's much easier if you keep your finger down, but you're gonna get that string squeak. Now on the treble strings, when you practice it, you won't get any squeak, so you can keep your finger down, right? Fourth stays down, first stays down, fourth stays down, first stays down, fourth stays down. You get the idea. And the shifts are pretty long, but they're much easier, right? If you have a guide finger on the string. So when you're practicing on the treble strings, you can just use the guide. And you might even want to start the exercise there. But when you're on those bass strings, you're going to have to practice those shifts with no squeak and just a direct line. This is a great exercise though. Sometimes we try to correct our shifts during scales, but it doesn't it's harder to address the shift itself. These exercises are just on shifts, so I hope that they really help clean up your playing, organize your left hand. Just remember all those tips that we talked about, keeping things aligned.